Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If I can request all the brothers and sisters to kindly come in the masjid as program is about to start. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent and merciful. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for blessing us with existence and granting us this wonderful opportunity to move towards Him. Dear ulama, respected ulama, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Adamallahu ujurana wa ujurakum bimusabina bil Husayn alayhi salam. Waja'allana wa iyyakum min at-talibina bi sarihi ma'a. Waliyah Imam al-Mahdi min Ali Muhammad alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn wa ala awlad al-Husayn wa ala ashab al-Husayn. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, tonight we're holding the second Majalis of this weekend's Majalis, second and final Majalis, which will be addressed by Hujjatul Islam Maulana Rizwan Rizvi of New Jersey. With this we continue the journey of Azadari, the journey of sadness and grief, when the lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam around the world join hands to show their solidarity with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam for the shahadat of his grandson Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, who was martyred along with his family and companions in Karbala. As we get ready for this another night of Azadari, we pray to Bibi Sayyida Fatima salamullah alayha to accept her pursa wa ali Muhammad. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to walk in the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, inshallah. We'll start the tonight's program with the recitation of Salam and Marsiya by Brother Zirak Shah. At this time, I would like to welcome him. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
Salawat bar Muhammad al Imam. رو رہی ہے سوچ کر، رو رہی ہے سوچ کر، بنی آج بھی رو رہی ہے سوچ کر، رو رہی ہے سوچ کر، بنی آج بھی اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ رشک کرتی تھی میک سے حیدر کرار پر، پاؤں خط دیتے تھے اس کے بیٹھ کر رہوار پر۔ ہائے میرے شیر کی، ہائے میرے شیر کی، یہ کیسی حالت ہو گئی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ مر کے بھی اس نے نبھایا مجھ سے جو وعدہ کیا، اپنے بیٹے کی وفا پر فخر ہے مجھ کو بڑا۔ اب نہیں اصغر کی ماں سے، اب نہیں اصغر کی ماں سے کچھ مجھے شرمندگی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ باپ کے بدلے مسلمانوں نے بیٹے سے لیے، سر جدا ہے تن جدا بازو جدا ہے شیر کے، آپ کی تصویر ٹکڑے، آپ کی تصویر ٹکڑے ہو گئی ہے یا علی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ کیا قدو قامت تھی اس کی یہ اسے معلوم تھا، ایک گٹھڑی میں سمٹ کر کیسے قاسم آ گیا۔ فروا جانتی ہے، فروا جانتی ہے کیا ہے میری بے کسی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ کہہ کے یا عباس کرتا ہے وہ اشکوں سے وضو، ڈرتی ہوں جاری نہ ہو پھر اس کی آنکھوں سے لہو، سامنے عابد کے یوں، سامنے عابد کے یوں کہتی نہیں ہوں میں کبھی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ کب سماتا تھا میری چادر میں تو اے میرے لال، کر دیا ہے ظالموں نے یہ تیرے لاشے کا حال، ہے میرے سر کی ردا بھی تیری تربت سے بڑی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ رو کے کرتی ہے سلام کو تکلم کربلا، فاطمہ زہرا سے ماں بیٹے نے کی ایسے وفا، مادر عباس کی تربت بھی ہے ٹوٹی ہوئی، اصغر بے شیر جیسی قبر ہے عباس کی۔ صلوات و رحمت اللہ۔ کیے ہیں شمر نے دو قتل، ایک خنجر دو قتل ایک خنجر سے، لہو حسین کا پوچا بہن کی چادر سے، کیے ہیں شمر نے غریب زہرا، وہیں روتے روتے مر جاتا، غریب زہرا وہیں روتے روتے مر جاتا، بہن اٹھا کے نہ لاتی جو لاش اکبر سے، کیے ہیں شمر نے دو قتل ایک خنجر سے، لبے حسین پہ ہنس ہنس کے مارتا تھا چھڑی، لبے حسین پہ ہنس ہنس کے مارتا تھا چھڑی، یزید کھیل رہا تھا حسین کے سر سے، کیے ہیں شمر نے کسی نے بالوں سے پکڑا کوئی اٹھا کے چلا، کسی نے بالوں سے پکڑا کوئی اٹھا کے چلا، سر حسین کو مارا کسی نے پتھر سے، کیے ہیں شمر نے دو قتل ایک خنجر سے، اسے اٹھایا ہے بابا کی لاش سے ایسے، اسے اٹھایا ہے بابا کی لاش سے ایسے کہ پھر سکینہ نہیں سوئی شمر کے ڈر سے، کیے ہیں شمر نے دو قتل ایک خنجر سے، بلا شام کے زندہ میں جب سکینہ نے بلایا شام کے زندہ میں جب سکینہ نے حسین پیار سے پلٹ آئے حوض کوثر سے کیے ہیں شمر نے دو قتل ایک خنجر سے بہن کا پردہ تکلم سے بچانا تھا بہن کا پردہ تکلم سے بچانا تھا سنا رہا تھا وہ قرآن سنا کے منبر سے کیے ہیں شمر نے دو قتل ایک خنجر سے لہو حسین کا پوچا بہن کی چادر سے صلوات محمد علیہ
Jazakallah, Brother Zirak, for his Sayyidina Salamti. Please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. کوئی سلمان کوئی میسم کوئی ابو ذر نکلے کوئی سلمان کوئی میسم کوئی ابو ذر نکلے جو بھی نکلے وہ مقدر کے سکندر نکلے یہ جو اصغر کے لیے مانگ رہا ہے پانی یہ جو اصغر کے لیے مانگ رہا ہے پانی مار دے خاک پہ ٹھوکر تو سمندر نکلے مال اسلام نے بانٹا تو ہزاروں موجود مال اسلام نے بانٹا تو ہزاروں موجود خون اسلام نے مانگا تو 72 نکلے. Brothers and sisters, our weekend Majalis will continue next Saturday and Sunday, August 12 and 13, inshallah. Those upcoming Majalis will be addressed by Hujjatul Islam Maulana Fayaz Jafar of New York. We will start the program with Maghrib and Isha prayers at prime time, inshallah. Thursday program, we are holding dua and lecture program. We start Thursday night programs at 7:30 p.m. followed by a brief lecture by Hujjatul Islam Maulana Amir Mukhtar Faizi, followed by namaz and ziyarat waris recitation. Ladies Majalis to commemorate the shahadat of our Mazloom Imam Hussain alayhi salam, his family and companions, will continue to take place every Saturday downstairs in the banquet hall at 11 a.m. throughout the months of Muharram and Safar. These Majalis are being addressed by Sister Maryam Ali Tahir. And finally, Unity Academy's Club Scout Pack number 313 will hold a fundraising luncheon on Sunday, August 19th. All members of the community are invited for this fundraising event. Proceeds will help fund scouting activities in the upcoming school year. For registration and to pay for the tickets, please visit our website at batulilm.org. Tonight's Majalis is being sponsored by the family of Brother Mujtaba Akbari for their sehat, salamti, barakat in this life and hereafter. Please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They have requested Surah Fatiha for the Isale Sawab of all of their marhumeen, especially for marhum Sayyid Shahid Akbari and Sayyid Muhammad Sardar Haider, and for all of your families marhumeen as well. Let's recite Surah Fatiha preceded by a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Tonight, once again, we're honored to host Hujjatul Islam Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi of New Jersey. So at this time, without further ado, I would like to invite Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi to please come to the member and address the community. Please welcome him with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نون والقلم وما يسطرون ما أنت بنعمة ربك بمجنون وإن لك لأجرا غير ممنون وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم. صلوات بيجي محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is the second and the last majlis in this series of majalis. Under the discussion and the topic of akhlaqiyat and humanity, I chose and recited these ayat in front of you last night from chapter number 68, known as Surah Al-Qalam. The initial 4 ayat, the translation is as such: Noon, and by the pen, and that which you write with this pen. O Prophet, by the grace of Allah, you are not insane, and Allah has reserved a reward for you which is everlasting, and indeed you are at the highest standards of morality. Of course, in these ayat, there's much to elaborate and do the tafsir, which I will refrain from going because then I will not be able to complete the discussion for tonight. Just briefly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins many chapters in Quran with these huruf-e-muqatta'at, these abbreviated alphabets, and to this day we don't know what these abbreviated alphabets mean. The letter Noon here stands for many things. And there are many speculations that could be given regarding what this Noon is. Some may have said, Noon is Wadhan Noon, the one who was Sahibi Noon, Hut, or that fish that Hazrat Yunus ﷺ was in the belly of. Some have mentioned that if that's the case, then what does that have to do with the pen and that which is written with the pen? So it does not correlate with that. Some have given other speculations regarding this letter and so on and so forth. But with that said, we realize that, of course, you and I can always admit to our ignorance, that we don't have ihata and complete understanding of all the laws. We don't have grasp of everything. There's still many things that we need to learn. And for that reason, Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Utlubul ilma min al-mahdi ila al-lahd." Seek knowledge from your cradle till your grave. And therefore we continue to learn things on daily basis. I remember vividly, there was a question that was asked, and I responded to that question. It could be related to any community, as there are similar issues that we have and we share in our communities. And when I responded to that, question, this family, this gentleman, this lady, they were of course, old. They were probably, and now don't judge my criteria for old, that they were above 60, 65 years old. And so definitely they're older than me, and they're my elders, and I respect them a lot. So I mentioned the mas'ala to them, and they said, well, we've been listening to Majalis for 40, 45 years. We've never heard it like this. Or we've never heard something like this. So I said, welcome to the club. I've been a student of this maktab for the past 25 years. I'm studying it as a subject for myself. You're listening to it. I'm studying it, and yet every single day I learn something new. Every single day there's something new to be taught and learned. And therefore we cannot always say that we have complete grasp over. So a lot of times things do surprise us when it comes to some of these ulum. Coming back to this concept, Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. By the pen and that which you write with this pen. There was a father and a son. Father was a scholar. Of course, scholars, they have a great deal to do with the pen. They're writers, they write a lot and whatnot. And so the son of his one day came to him, and father, instead of using the pen, was using a pencil. And when his son saw the pencil was being used, he asked his father, what are you writing with this pencil? And the father responded by saying, that which I'm writing is not important. Maybe he was not writing something important. But that which I'm writing with is very important, meaning the pencil. He said, when you grow up, I want you to be like this pencil. When you grow up, I want you to be like this pencil. He said, well, what are the features of a pencil that you want me to, be like it, imitate a pencil? And then father gave him a few moments to think about it. He couldn't come up with an answer. He said, let me tell you that. He said, number one, you'll grow up and you'll do wonders. You'll achieve many milestones. When you attain all of these things that are enough for an individual to achieve in this worldly life, don't become proud and, arrogant. Because there's someone who's making you do all of this. There's a power behind which is giving you tawfiq so that you can attain and achieve all of these milestones. It's similar to how a pencil itself does not do anything, but there's a hand behind it which scribes and writes with it. He said, number two, that sometimes when you're using a pencil, the tip of the pencil and the lead in it breaks. When the lead breaks or the tip breaks, you don't throw it away. You sharpen it. When you sharpen it, now you have sharpeners, you put it in and it gets sharp. But back in the day, you would use a knife or something to chisel it out and then to make it sharp. Apparently, it's a very painful process to decrease something from the pencil, sharpen it. But what is the end result? That once you've sharpened the broken chip, you're able to write better with it. More clear, and a better thing is written with it. He said, this is the example of all of the calamities that you see in your life. Those things that kind of serve like a stop sign or a dead end in your life. Don't consider those things to be hurdles for you. Rather, let that be an example for you that you grow better out of it. These examples should serve as sharpeners for you, sharpen you so that you come out and you do more and more wonders in your life. Don't let these things get in the way and stop you. He said, third, that the pencil is so unique that if you make a mistake, you can always erase it. In your life, you'll make a lot of mistakes. What I want you to do is that to recognize the mistakes that you have made, acknowledge the mistakes, and correct them. Bringing this reform in yourself and correcting your mistake is not a bad thing. It only takes a courageous person to go ahead and admit to the mistakes and then erase it. Remove that chapter from their life and then move forward. He said you're allowed to do that when you're using a pencil. He said number 4, the exterior of the pencil is not important. It could be beautiful. It could be made out of plastic, made out of wood. That is not the reality of the pencil. That which is inside is the real deal. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created, and this will come in our discussion tonight, created you with these two realities, your body and your soul. Your body is important, you should take care of it. All the doctors and physicians sitting over here, I'm not advocating that you not take care of your bodies. No, you should. It's an amanat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence, you should take care of it. And we do to an extent. When it comes to our physical body, we try to beautify it as much as we can. Try to make our appearances as good as we can. But we neglect the internal aspect of our life, which is our soul. We spend all our life beautifying our bodies, and we never once thought of beautifying our soul. He says similarly in the pencil, the external aspect of it is not important. That which is inside of it is something that you should be more worried about. And lastly, what you write with it will remain even if you are not around one day. That which you have scribed with it will be documented and left as a legacy after you, even if you're not around. So make sure that you leave behind something which serves and which provides for you even after you're gone from this world. And leave a beautiful and a constructive legacy after yourself. He said, that's the reason I want you to be like this pencil when you grow up. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you remember last night, our discussion when we were talking about akhlaq and humanity, one of the points that was mentioned, the importance of it in our Islamic culture. How important this aspect of ethics and morality is, and to what extent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has explained it, that when He introduces His Prophet, He introduces him as إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that you are at the highest standards of morality. When Prophet introduces himself, he also says إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. So with these two as the preface and the muqaddimah from last night's discussion, for those who were here, we're going to build upon it, and inshallah we'll bring it toward a conclusion. That the importance could be understood from this aspect. How important it is to have good ethics and akhlaq. Even the surah that I recited, the initial ayat for you from Surah Qalam, the first ayat that were revealed were from Surah Alaq, chapter 96. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. These are the ayat that you all know were revealed. Chronologically speaking, the second surah that was revealed was Surah Al-Qalam. The way chronologically these surahs were revealed, second was Surah Al-Qalam. Doesn't it make you wonder and think that the first ever wahi that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind says read. The second wahi that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says write. The emphasis of the religion is on reading and writing. And read makes you what? It's a hint toward attaining knowledge, becoming knowledgeable, educating yourself, not staying in the valleys of ignorance. And then the true essence of this knowledge is not that it makes you arrogant. The first ayat of Surah Alaq says, Iqra. What is the last ayat of the Surah Alaq? Wasjud. I'm not going to read the entire ayat. I have to do sajda wajib. The first ayat is Iqra. The last ayat is Wasjud. Meaning what? When you read, when you educate yourself, you become humble. That you prostrate and you put your head on the floor. This ilm and education should not make you arrogant, that you even refrain from doing sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the essence of the akhlaq that is being taught to us. And you find that in the examples of Ahlul Bayt. So the importance, I cannot emphasize more than what has already been said in the given time that we have. Tonight what I wanted to get into a little bit is that insan, the value of insan, humans. This qawl is associated to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Kafa bil mar'i jahlan an la ya'rifa qadrah. It is enough for the ignorance of insan that he does not know his own value and worth, does not realize his own qadr. So look at how Islam, or rather Quran, presents humans. First we need to realize the human aspect, and then we'll see what this akhlaq can do if they are coupled with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to insan in Quran as وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam, that we did takreem and honor to the children of Adam. وَلَقَدْ فَضَّلْنَا, for example, or فَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَىٰ كَثِيرٍ, that we gave them fadilat and virtue over many. There are only a few that are virtuous than insan. But ala kathir, majority of the things we gave fadilat to insan. We gave karamat and we get fadilat. We made him virtuous and we made him honorable. And then when it came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving this honor to insan, the mountains, the heavens and the earth, they all stayed away from the amanat, then the trust that Allah wanted to send upon them. The ayat of Quran is in front of you. Inna aradna al-amanata ala samawati wal ardi wal jibal. We gave this amanat. To this day, I'm having trouble understanding what this amanat is. You pick up tafsir, you'll find amanat is, riwayat mention, this amanat is, the wilayat of Ahlul Bayt, for example. This amanat is, other things are mentioned in this regard. What is it that insan agreed to carry? Let's move on. Let's see whatever it is. But Allah wanted to give this amanat to the mountains, the heavens and the earth. They all refrained from doing so. فَأَبَيْنَا أَن يَحْمِلْنَاهَا. They said, we won't be able to do it. وَأَشْفَقْنَا. They were scared of it. Who carried it? وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ. Insan said, I'll carry it on my back. So this was something which was, heavy, in a sense that if anything else had carried it, they would not have been able to do so. This is showing what? Mufassirin mentioned that if anything, this ayat tells you that insan has more fadilah than all of these things that were mentioned in it. Even if you don't know what that amanat is, that trust is, but insan's fadilat is being shown through this ayat that it is above and beyond all of these things. And of course it is. And if had this been a Quran, this amanat been a Quran, because some of the Mufassirin has mentioned that amanat is this Quran, this trust is this Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another ayat, لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتُهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ. Had this Quran been revealed on a mountain, you would see it destructed. There's nothing of this mountain would have remained. Meaning, if Quran was revealed on a mountain, mountain would have definitely and would have been obliterated. But insan was able to carry it. So does that mean this is an average human being? No, this is a human being, a person in the form of Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you think when Prophet is leaving this world, he can leave it to anyone who can carry this? No, it has to be someone who is from him. So where do you get that from? Only the beginning part of Surah Tawbah, also known as Surah Bara. When it was revealed in the 9th year after Hijrah, after Fatih Makkah and before Hajjatul Wada, it was revealed in between. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the ayat of Surah Bara to the first Khalifa to go recite to the people of Makkah. He was on his way, he was stopped at the maqam of Juhfa. Amirul Mu'mineen was sent. Why Jibreel came down with this message, Ya Muhammad, La yu'addi anka illa anta aw rajulun minka. This message cannot be delivered by anyone except you or someone from you. Meaning what? While it is fadilat for Aimma Athar and they are the true inheritors of the legacy that Rasulullah leaves behind, but this tells us that not only they cannot, but they don't have the ability to carry it either. Let me ask you this question. Sometimes when you look at the ayat of Quran and you say, well, the explanation could have been better. Initial ayat of Surah Baqarah, which talks about Hazrat Adam alayhi wasalam, the introduction that Allah is telling him, Ja'ilun fil arzi khalifa, that he's being made a khalifa. And then the angels respond by saying, Atajalu fiha, you're going to make someone to be a khalifa, yasfikud dima, who's going to do bloodshed and cause fasad in the land and all that stuff. And Allah says, you do not know what I know. And then asks Hazrat Adam to go ahead and tell them the asma. First asks the angels to relate what Hazrat Adam knows. They say, Rabbana la ilma lana illa ma allamtana. We do not have the knowledge except that which you have taught us. And then he says to Hazrat Adam, O Adam, tell them, Ambi'hum bi asma', tell him the names that we have taught you. Hazrat Adam tells them the name. My question here, if Allah had told these names to the angels, then they would have been able to answer it, right? He didn't give this knowledge to the angels. He asked them. They said, we don't have the knowledge, and they're saying it literally. Ma ilma lana illa ma allamtana. We don't have the knowledge of that which you have not taught. So they were not given this knowledge. Then they're asked, go ahead and relate. Tell us about it. They're unable to do so. Then Allah teaches Hazrat Adam this knowledge, and then tells Hazrat Adam to tell them. It's like I tell people sitting on this side something, without telling the people sitting on this side. And then I ask them to say this, they say, well, how do we know? Because you didn't tell us. And then I tell the people sitting on this side to go ahead and relate it to them. Oh Allah, you should have just given this knowledge to the other people, the angels. They would have been able to relate. Because they didn't know, they weren't taught, they didn't have the knowledge. The answer is? It makes you wonder, you think about it. These ayat are recited many times. And angels are agreeing to the fact that we did not know. But the answer is what? Answer is, the angels, even had they been informed of these names and this knowledge, they did not have the capacity to bear the weight of it. Hazrat Adam had the capacity to bear the weight of it, hence Hazrat Adam was informed of it. So it's not like that Allah is depriving the angels of some knowledge and then telling Hazrat Adam to show off in front of them. Rather, it is that you did not have the capacity. It is above and beyond your capability to even able to absorb what is being given to Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Salawat beji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this is where we realize that Ahlul Bayt are the real, deserving individuals of that which Rasulullah is leaving behind. And this is not my personal sentiments. These are the words of Mufassirin, such as in Tafsir Baydawi, when he talks about the ayah Mubahala, the Asqaf Azam, these were the words that were related of Asqaf Azam. What did he say? He said, Wallahi inni la ara wujuhan law sa'alullaha an yuzila al-jabala an makanihi la azhalahu. This Christian is saying that by God I see the faces. If they were to ask Allah to move mountains, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will move mountains for them. Meaning what? A Christian from that time understood, looking the faces of Prophet and his family, realizing and understanding their value and worth. Yet insan still today is doubting about who should have been the vicegerent of Rasulullah. A Christian at that time understood who these individuals are, that they possess that power. If they were to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to move mountains, you tell that to someone today, it's far-fetched. They have the ability to move mountains, they would have been able to do so. And when we are on this, Amirul Mu'mineen, when he explains and he introduces himself in Nahjul Balagha, Imam gives the example of his steadfastness, comparing it with the mountain. He says what? He says, Kal jabali la tuharriquhu al-awasif wa la tuziluhu al-qawasif. That my steadfastness is like the jabal, the mountain, which the storms cannot move, nor can the winds uproot. My steadfast, Amirul Mu'mineen is saying, you know how steadfast I am? The storms cannot deter, the storms cannot change, the storms cannot move me. That's how strong I am. I don't know why Imam is giving the example of a mountain, because usually we find the example of mountains, people fleeing the mountain rather than staying thibat qadm and steadfast on the mountain. Salawat wa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that's first aspect of insan's value, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that karamat, made you virtuous over all of these things because you were trusted with the amana. Number two, another aspect of the value of insan. And this is an ayat which is repeated many places. Surah Luqman, for example, over here, ayat number 20, which says, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Everything is subservient to you, that which is between the heavens and the earth. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارِ. The night and the day are subservient to you. وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرِ. The sun and the moon are subservient to you. Meaning what everything is for your sake. We created this entire universe for you. If you don't exist in this universe, then this universe has zero value. It's not worth it being created. It's created for your sake. But when Allah talks about creating insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خَلَقْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي. I created this universe for you, but I created you for myself. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is creating us for Himself. This is of course the words of Rawayat, not the ayat. That Allah is saying that I created you for me. Just know your value, know your worth. That aspect of your life, He used nafsi, my nafs. Although nafs itself has the meaning of Himself, but He also used ya mutakallim with it, associating that my nafs. You know how important this ya is? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He orders Hazrat Adam and when He orders Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, Ibn Sikki says, you don't have to decorate the Kaaba. Kaaba does not need to be decorated with this or with that. It is enough for the decoration of the Kaaba that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala associates it with Himself. When He says, Antahira bayti, that you to go ahead and purify my house. Because when a thing is associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is already beautified and it has already been adorned. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So moon and the sun and the stars and the other things between the heavens and the earth, they cannot be compared with human beings. In fact, even angels cannot be compared with human beings. What did Hazrat Jibreel say when he ascended with Rasulullah? لَوْ دَنَوْتُ أَنْمُلَةً لَحْتَرَقْتُ. If I had moved even in 1 inch, I would have been burned. And that's why insan can attain that level. Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about it. When someone asks him, is insan above the angels? Imam responded by saying what? He said, if insan's aql takes over his shahwat, then he's above the angels. But if his desires take over his aql, then he's worse than the animals. So you can actually gain the status of being above the angels as well. And that is the ability that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has left in us. So what is the secret in insan being so exalted? Why are we so exalted? Why do we have this azamat, for example? Is it because we have 2 hands? We have 2 feet? Eyes, ears, all these different organs? In fact, when Allah compares the ummah of Rasulullah over the other in ayat of Surah Al Imran, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrajat linnas, right? You're the best of the nations. Why? Because we are the ummah of Rasulullah. Why? Because we look a certain way, because we come from a certain place, because of our background or anything of that sort? No. Allah gives the answer right away in that ayat. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrajat linnas. Why? Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. Because you do amr bil maruf, because you do nahi anil munkar, and you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the reasons you're given this status of being what? The best of the nations. Here, if insan is above all of these other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is the reason? Because of these physical aspects? Of course not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given this takreem and azamat to insan not due to the external organs, rather something which is internal in us. That example, that father of that pencil, the external aspect of the pencil and the internal aspect of the pencil. That nafs, that ruh, that soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you, that makes you ba'azamat and above and beyond anything else that you have seen. So therefore we see, if that was not the case, if insan did not have this soul which makes him this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran considers insan whose soul is dead to be worse than animals. The ayat of Quran says what? It says, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا لَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يَبْصُرُونَ بِهَا لَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. They have the hearts, they have the eyes, they have the ears, but they don't use them. They are worse than animals. In fact, there are cattle, in fact, they're worse than the cattle. When it compares the heart of insan, ثُمَّ قَسَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ, when your hearts are stern, and gives the example and compares, kal hijara. It says your hearts are like the stones. You know how hard and stiff a stone is? But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, in fact, it is stronger, bal ashad, actually worse than stones. Sometimes insan becomes so stiff, so stern, so stiff-necked that he becomes, worse than a stone even. Why? At least sometimes from the stone, the ayat of Quran says, لَمَّا يَتَفَجَّرُ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارُ, that sometimes from these very stiff stones, spring sprout out of it, come out of it. Water springs out of the stones. But insan becomes so stiff and stern that nothing can come out of it. There's no, samara and fruits from this insan. So it could go to those asfala safilin as well. While we have given him this maqam, it can lose all of that and go to asfala safilin. So let's stay on the topic where insan is considered to be ba'azamat. Everything is created with dual materials. Except, of course, Zat-e Bari Ta'ala, which is singular, which is wahid, which is ahad. Everything else has duality. For example, if I give example to the kids, when you look at the ball, right? The ball, if you put air in it, and you put on the water, it'll float. If you take the air out of it, it'll go to the bottom, tank to the bottom. Similar like a balloon. If you put air in it, it'll go up. You take the air out of it, it falls to the ground. That is the nature of this world. That is dragging you to the ground. But the moment you put air into the balloon, you put air into the ball, it floats and it goes up. World is trying to bring you down. You need to have this nafs to keep you afloat and to stay above everything. And that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created this nafs in us, this material nature wants to drag you down, while this invisible air wants to make you go up. And that invisible thing is the nafs of insan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us, and that makes us to be ba'azamat. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You know, when these two powers collide, this is where you find conflict comes into play. In fact, if you put two people in a room, you'll see the conflict. If a person is by himself or by herself, who are they going to fight? They're not going to fight anyone. But the moment there are two, there's duality. Right away, there's conflict that comes about. And one of the dualities that is praised is husband and wife duality, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states it very beautifully in Surah Rum, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. That this zawj that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created from you, from your own nufus and your nafs. And of course, everything else that goes with it. So two people together, conflict will come. But if a person is by himself, you'll see that, they might stay away from this conflict. Insan too. Humans as well are made of these two things, body and soul. You've heard these things before. There's nothing new in it. It's just that I want to derive at the end a conclusion with it. With this body and soul, of course, we know that our soul is something which we can't see, especially for the children I'm speaking. The body is visible, but the soul is invisible. You and I cannot see this soul. And that's why when a person dies, we don't see the soul flying away somewhere. And the whole concept of the ruh and exiting the body, and then the body is buried here, and then the ruh has left and has gone to purgatory, for example. We see that this ruh is so important. This nafs is so important that without it, insan is not insan anymore. And this ruh is so important that Adam existed, yet he was not worthy of sajda. He became worthy of sajda only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did what? وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِ. When He blew His soul into Adam, alayhi salatu wasalam, now he was worthy of this sajda. Prior to that, he was not. It was just a body. That's how important this nafs is. And if you don't mind me telling you this, that it was due to the nafs that came into Kaaba, that Kaaba went from being Kaaba to the Qibla. It was not Qiblatul Muslimin until the wiladat of Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. But the soul is very tricky. This nafs, there are certain things that rest on it. A couple of things that rest on this nafs is our desires and anger. They're two important things that everyone has. Desires, we can talk a lot about desires, but these two, especially the anger part of it, ghazab. And sometimes we say, well, ghazab, or we call it in Urdu ghussa, anger is bad, right? When insan is angry, flames are coming out of the mouth, right? And flames burn things. That's why one of the remedies of your anger is what? Do wudu. To extinguish fire, you put water on it. So do wudu, and it'll extinguish your ghussa and ghadab and anger. Or change your position. If you're sitting down, get up, start walking, something like that. But this ghadab and this anger is not always negative. There's positive anger as well. When someone is pointing finger at your honor, namus. When someone is mocking your deen, mocking your Rabb, speaking ill about Prophet or Aimma Athar. The ghadab should be there. The anger should be there. In fact, ghadab is an attribute which is also associated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah yaghdiba bi ghadabi Fatima wa liyarda bi radaha. That indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is angry with the anger of Fatima Zahra, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is radhi with the radayat and the satisfaction of Fatima. So this is an attribute which is associated even with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a sifat which is there for him as well. Now come to desires, our khwahish. All of the materialistic things that we have, they desire something. Our bodies, they want something. Our bellies, they want food. Our eyes want to see something which is pleasant to see. Our ears want to hear something which is pleasant to hear. They all desire something, and this desire exists in all of them. Insan, completely the embodiment of insan, the mujassama if you want to call it, is made up of these desires. And then when these desires are not met, these expectations are not met, then comes anger. A father is angry at the son is angry at the father, husband is angry at the wife is angry with the husband. A scholar is angry with the people are angry with the scholar. All of these relationships that exist. Why? Because we have expectations from each other. I have this expectation from my wife. I have this expectation from my father. I have this expectation from my son. I have this expectation from my scholar. And when these expectations are not met, then right away what happens? Ghadab comes in and the anger comes in. While we're on this topic, I'm sure many of you who are in this, I don't want to use the word business, kar khair, that you make matches. A lot of times people send their children's, data and their profile to us. Maulana, if you find a suitable match for them, please refer. And then some of these things are just so funny. The criteria that the boy has placed, that I'm looking for a girl, of course, Muslim, Shia, someone who's well educated, preferably a doctor, career oriented, and good looking, and not too short, not too tall, and also homemaker, should be able to cook as well. All these things should be present. One more important thing that I left out. Moderately religious. My discussion on moderation will come later on, I don't know if I'll have time, but moderately religious. I still have not understood what does that mean to be moderately religious. So I asked them, what do you mean by someone who is moderate when it comes to their religion? We just go to the Majalis, that's it. Hijab, that's not part of it. Anything beyond that is not part of it. Just, once in a while we'll go to the Majalis and that would be it. That's the understanding of the moderation in Islam. I still remember, I think it was the president of CARE. A few years ago, she was asked this question. She herself was not observing hijab, but asked about the Muslim women who observe hijab. Isn't it something, something of backward nature that they live in the past? And she actually gave a very beautiful answer. She said, the more they cover themselves, the more progressive they are. The less they cover themselves, the more backward they are. Right? Look back at the history of insan. When Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Hawa were sent to this world, they were covering their private parts with leaves. And then as insan grew and more civilized they became, they realized they have to cover themselves. And so slowly and gradually you see them covering. So if someone is not covering themselves today, they are backward. And if someone is covering themselves today, they are the more progressive ones. So you get these sort of proposals and then you don't know what to make of it. That moderately religious and this should be there, this should be there, this should not be there, I don't know what they're looking for in their spouse. So with that said, when these things are not met, when expectations are not met, what happens? Leads to anger. I was expecting this. I was expecting that. Well, you're wrong, you were expecting this and that. You should have normal expectations from each other. In fact, if you have too much expectation, you're always going to be in the state of being disappointed. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So insan, the second aspect of this insan is of course this nafs, which deals with what? Which deals with the ilm and the fikr and the contemplation of insan. And for your knowledge and your ilm and your contemplation, you don't have to have, proper organs. If someone cuts off your hands, that does not decrease in your knowledge. That does not decrease in your contemplation. If anything, it increases it. But now you're able to see with the better clarity some of these things. And so, one of the follies and the faults that we find, majority of the things that are anti-ethical, they come from the usage of this tongue. I know there have been many lectures on akhlaq over here and they have been addressed, but just to use it as a point, inshallah, I'll move forward. That there's an entire chapter in our books called the books of akhlaq, which, as I mentioned last night, are very scarce. And whatever amount of books that we have, there's an entire chapter on this topic called Afatul Lisan, the dangers of this tongue. Someone asked Luqman Hakim, what is the best part of an animal? He said, the tongue. He said, what's the worst part? He said, the tongue. He said, how can the best and the worst be the same? He said the best and the worst could be the same because if this tongue is used properly for haqq and for truth, for standing up for justice, then it is the best. But if the same tongue is used to desecrate something, to defame and to slander and to backbite, then it is the worst. Same organ, yet it could be the best and it could be the worst. And many of the ahadith of Masumin refer to that as well, that majority of the faults and the calamities that come upon Banu, Noah, Insan and Adam is through the tongue that had been given to them. Through this tongue of theirs. There's a story of two very great scholars. One is Mirza Habibullah Rashti and Sheikh Jafar Shustari. They lived about 100 years ago or so. Both were ulama, fuqaha, and they had their own following. So there was a time when there used to be, ilmi debates. So there was a debate between the two. Sheikh Jafar came with his people and his pupil, his students, and Habibullah Rashti came with his. And they sat down and they started having this debate. Stay on the tongue part that I just mentioned. They started having this debate. And when they were having this debate, of course, sometimes things get heated up. When you're speaking about some mas'ala and you're not agreeing with the other, things get heated up. And while in this, you want to remain, you keep the decorum, you want to remain, respectful of the other party. It is mentioned that Habibullah Rashti, he uttered something from his tongue which served as istihana, as tawheen, disrespectful toward Sheikh Jafar Shustari. He uttered some words while he was trying to prove his point, which they were not agreeing upon. He used a language which people clearly see that was it was not a curse word, but it was something which would devalue or disrespect him. Right away, there was this tension in the hall. Now the followers of Sheikh Jafar Shustari are expecting a response from their teacher, while Habibullah Rashti, his people, are expecting a response from Sheikh Jafar. After a long pause, you know what Sheikh Jafar Shustari did? This is the akhlaq of ulama. You won't find it in the students like me. If I had heard someone, even if they were older than me and had something with istihana, which is tawheen and disrespectful to me, I would have responded right away with 10 times. Sheikh Jafar Shustari, after a small pause, gets up from his place, goes over to Habibullah Rashti and kisses his hand, and then comes back to his place. Right away, the tension that was created in the hall, it was diffused. The air was sucked out of it. Nobody was expecting that. Later on, people asked Sheikh Jafar Shustari, why didn't you respond and reply to what Habibullah Rashti has said to you? He said, Shaitan came to me, gave me 1,000 rebuttals. Some of them were actually good. I could have easily defeated him. Some of them were evil and cunning. And if I had responded to him, Shaitan would have won that night. By not responding to him, I defeated Shaitan and diffused the situation, and we are here. You know how quickly with the tongue, with the usage of a tongue, you can change the entire ummah as well. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I know I've run out of my time, so I'll quickly conclude. Balance is very important in life. And that's where the concept of moderation was, and I don't have time to get into that. There are three possible scenarios for everything that we do in our life. One is based on moderation, and the other two are the two extremes, right? One extreme, the other extreme, and that middle path, which is the moderation. And that moderation is good majority of the time. And so what do you mean? Well, sometimes this moderation doesn't have to be that good. Moderation to argument. For example, I'll give farzi misal. Zach wants to burn down the house, while his brother Joe says, no, don't burn down the house. So they compromise. And so, well, we won't listen to him, he's burning down the house. We won't listen to him, he doesn't want to burn down the house. Let's come in the middle, burn half the house down. So moderation in this area would be bad. But the majority of the time, moderation is something which is, praiseworthy. And therefore, i'tidal is important. The middle ground is important. Anger also has, since we were on anger also has these three sides. The first side of anger, which is on moderation, is called courage. The extreme where a person exceeds and goes beyond what was expected is called tahawwur in Arabic, and impetuous, overly bold, for example. And then the third side, where insan is not showing any courage at all, is cowardice, buzdil, right? These are the three sides of it. You could be courageous, you could be mutahawwir, or overly bold or impetuous, or you could be on the last end of it, which is coward. Nobody wants to be a coward. You don't want to be overly bold, you want to be in the middle. And I'll leave you with this. When you look at the poetry of our shu'ara, the great shu'ara, Mir Anis has a couplet for Hazrat Hur. What does he say about him? He says this: Bakhuda farse maidan tahawwur tha Hur, ek do lakh sawaron mein bahadur tha Hur. Let me translate. By God, Hur was, according to the word that he used, tahawwur, impetuous, overly bold in that, in the Maidan where they're fighting. And he was above 100 and 200,000 people, stronger than them. You see, Mir Anis did not use the word, although he could have easily used the word shaja'at, which is there for a balance. Shaja'at is courage, which is the middle, moderation of your courage, right? He could have easily said the word Bakhuda farse maidane shuja'at tahur, and it would have made sense. The balance would not have been, taken out. And where Mir Anis, who is not lacking, is not short on the qafiyah and the rhymes, he has so many qafiyah with him, he used this word. When you ask him why he used the word tahawwur, impetuous, and not the word courageous for Hur, He would respond by saying, because Hur at that time is in the army of Umar Asad. Because he's in the army of Umar Asad, he is tahavvur. But when he comes and makes his way to the army of Imam Hussein, now that is courage. That is the difference between these three conditions, and the moderate condition is where you are courageous. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Run out of my time. Of course, that's what we learn from the life of Sayyid al-Shuhada as well. He said the same thing, that the son of so and so has put me in this where I am bayna sillati wa dhilla, that either I take the sword or I face zillat. Wa hayhat minna zillah. And of course, I'm away from any sort of disgrace and zillat. I don't expect any of that. And therefore Imam alayhi salatu wassalam, he said on numerous occasions, al-mawtu khayrun min rukub al-ar. Maut is better than living or riding on disgrace. Wal-aru khayrun min dukhul al-nar. But facing disgrace is better than entering Jahannam. All of these, Imam is giving us this moderate path. And therefore we gain a great deal of akhlaq when it comes to the kalam of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Even in those last moments, Imam is giving this opportunity to the enemy. That when Imam is teaching them and giving them opportunity, one more opportunity, that you can come back. Look at the passion that Imam has. I don't know if I mentioned it here last night or maybe at another Majlis, that when Imam arrived, he said 3 conditions when he was by himself. First condition, let me go back. Second condition, they didn't agree to that. Second thing, give me water. Third, Imam said, fight me one-on-one. They didn't agree to the first 2, but they agreed to the last one. Although they did not keep up with the last one either. But when these first 2 were broken, you think Imam is really looking for water? You think Imam is really looking to go back now? He's made all this journey now, he's looking to go back? He's looking for water when all of his family members have been killed? Is that the reason Imam is asking? No, this is where you see the heart of Sayyid al-Shuhada. That he's actually giving them an opportunity. That even after what you have done already, killed all of my family members, I'm giving you a path of najat and salvation. And so he reminded the Arabs, in lam yakun lakum dinun, wala takhafun al-ma'ad kunu ahraran fi dunyakum. Even if you don't have any deen whatsoever, be hur and be free in this world. These are the nights when Ahl Haram are leaving the city of Kufa. Some of the masaib of Kufa are heart-wrenching. Muslim Jassas, he hears that there's a caravan that has come into Kufa. He asked, he was building Darul Amara, he asked, who is coming? And he was informed that one rebel was killed in Karbala. A rebel. Baghi was killed in Karbala, and his family is made captive and is being brought over here. Right away you see Muslim Jassas, when he hears that it is the Hussein, a family of Hussein and his family, the children of Rasul, they're calling them to be rebels. He said, when this man left, I hit so hard on my face that I would have gone blind. He said, then he comes and he looks at who these people are. He sees that there are women folk that are coming on top of these camels. And then he sees Bimar Imam on top of a ride without any saddles while he's bleeding. He said, well, that was not enough. When they all came in, later on there were these spears upon which the heads of Shuhada were. And I looked at the head of Hussein ibn Ali and I wept and I cried. There was another man, Abdullah ibn Afif, who had gone blind alongside with Amirul Mu'mineen fighting in Jamal and Siffin. He said, I always wondered that I lost my eyes and I did not attain Shahada. And there comes a time when he hears Zainab Kubra, when she gives a speech in the bazaar of Kufa, when she says, Ansitu, be quiet, and everything quiet down, even the animals, all of the anfas and all of the breaths were stopped. At that moment, this man, when he heard the voice, he couldn't see with his ears, with his eyes, he could hear with his ears. He said to his daughter, oh my daughter, has Qiyamah taken place? She said, no Baba, no Qiyamah has not happened. He said, then why is it that I hear the sound? Why is it that I hear the voice of Ali ibn Abi Talib? And she responded by saying, no, this is not the voice of Ali. Instead, this is the voice of daughter of Ali, Zainab Kubra. Here Abdullah understands the reason he had gone blind in the battle of Jamal and battle of Siffin, so that he doesn't get to see this manzar today. He doesn't have to see the atrocities of these people today. Why amongst them is Zainab, the daughter of Ali, who does not have any veil on top of her. He raises his voice in discomfort and dissent, and eventually he was attacked as well. Just imagine what would go through when he was speaking up. He was from the clan of Azd. All the people of Azdi stood up in his guard. 700 of them started protecting Abdullah ibn Afif, and here Zain al-Abidin is shackled in robes and in chains. He must have looked at them saying, oh Allah, there aren't any Muhammi, there aren't any people who are standing up for us, but there are people for others. Allah la'natullah al-qawm al-zalimin. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Allah, we've committed a lot of sins, please forgive our sins. Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah, give us the ability to follow the footsteps of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah, hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam, make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Akhu da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Matame Hussein.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Amma fiza bata de mujhko पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं कैसा है ये चरागा दिल डूबे जा रहे हैं क्या शाम आ गया है अम्मा फिजा बता दे मुझको पत्थर क्यों आ रहे हैं اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں نیزوں پہ جتنے سر ہیں ایک سر ہے ان میں ایسا آنکھیں ہیں بند اس کی اور خاک پر ہے گرتا عباس کا یہ سر ہے تیور بتا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اتنا چلے ہیں پیدل کانٹوں پہ سارے قیدی تھک جاتی چلتے چلتے چلتی اگر زمین بھی پیروں کے آبلے بھی آنسو بہا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں نیزے پہ رو رہا ہے مشکل کشا کا بیٹا نامحرموں کے لب پر آیا ہے نام میرا مجھ کو کنیز زادے یوں بھی رلا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں ماں کی گودیوں سے لپٹے ہوئے ہیں بچے ہیں ہاتھ رسیوں میں ماں کے ایسے جکڑے بچے جو گر رہے ہیں وہ مرتے جا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں کیوں قافلہ رکا ہے بجتے ہیں شادیانے لہرا رہے ہیں آدھا خوش ہو کے تازیانے کیوں جشن کا سما ہے سب مسکرا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں لوگ کس طرح کے ہم سے دعا کرائیں، اے قیدیوں دعا دو یہ دن ہم پہ آئے، لے کر دعائیں ہم سے دل بھی دکھا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، ہونے لگی اذانیں کیسے سروں کو ڈھانپے، بازو بندھے ہوئے ہیں خون رو رہی ہیں آنکھیں، آنکھوں کے خون سے رستے خون میں نہا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، ریحان قیدیوں میں برپا تھا شور گریا، پلکوں سے کر رہی تھی ماتم جو بنت زہرا، سجاد ناخواں ہیں ناہا سنا رہے ہیں، کیا شام آ گیا ہے اما فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اما فضا، بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
صلی علی محمد وآل محمد، متوجہ زیارت۔
السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکم یا نبی اللہ، السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین و سید الوصیین، السلام علیکم فاطمۃ الزہرا سیدۃ النساء العالمین، السلام علیکم یا سبط الرحمہ و امام الہدی الحسن والحسین سید شباب اہل الجنہ، السلام علیکم علی ابن الحسین و محمد ابن علی و جعفر ابن محمد و موسیٰ ابن جعفر وعلی ابن موسیٰ و محمد ابن علی وعلی ابن محمد والحسن ابن علی، السلام علیکم صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام علیکم امام الانس والجان، السلام علیکم شریک القرآن، عجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسہل اللہ مخرجک وظہورک وجعلنا من اعوانک وانصارک ورحمت اللہ وبرکاتہ۔